Hi everyone, welcome to Chapter 1 of Global Health. I create these audio accompaniments to the PowerPoint as an additional learning tool that you may use as you wish. It's certainly not required. I did not think these were as beneficial as apparently they are, but as we all have different learning styles, for some people, hearing the key points may be as beneficial, if not more so, than actually reading them. So just think of this as kind of a go-along if you wish to use it. I do tend to get off on tangents sometimes in these audios. I get very passionate about these topics, so bear with me. Also, you may hear some background noise. I do have 3 dogs, and they are given to barking at air at any given point in time. So there may be frequent pauses or interruptions. Fair warning. So why should I take this class? Obvious answer is most of you have to take it because of your major. I understand that, and I'm cool with it. However, I think it could be said that global health really does affect us all. Perhaps that's why it's a required class. There are so many challenges in place right now with global health, and will continue to be challenges. Our world truly is shrinking and is without borders. When you think about how easy it is for us to get on a plane and travel to Africa or Cambodia, you really start seeing that there are no borders when it comes to global health, and particularly communicable diseases. There's nothing that says, oh, hey, you can't travel if you have malaria. They don't screen you for that before you travel. That's probably a very poor example, but the first one that comes to mind. So what are we going to talk about in class? Well, there are so many factors that play into global health, including our environment, our nutrition, our sexual and reproductive health, childhood health. We're seeing increases in childhood health outcomes. Injuries, whether intentional or unintentional, and then, of course, diseases. Now, I try to be really good about letting you know when something is going to be on a future test or talked about further in chapters. So diseases is one of those that we're going to spend a lot of time on in future chapters. It is something that will always be on a quiz, always be on the final exam. Key point to note is the difference between a communicable disease, which is something that can be passed on from human to human, versus a non-communicable disease, which is something that you cannot catch from someone. An example of a non-communicable disease would be anxiety or depression or diabetes or cancer. Communicable diseases would be things like the flu, measles, mumps. Kind of get the idea there. Still talking. One of the key points we want to focus on are health determinants. Now, this is not to be confused with health detriments. However, they often and are one and the same. Health status plays a part in global health, as do cultural roles. How does our culture contribute to our health outcomes? There's also the global burden of disease and risk factors. And then, of course, health transitions like demographic, nutritional, and epidemiological. That is covered to some extent in this chapter. Probably not as robust as I would like, but if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to discuss it more with you. If you take nothing else from this class, I would like you to take this one sentence. Prevention is better than cure. Think about our current healthcare system. Doesn't it make more sense, especially financially? I always try to put things into perspective for my husband. So it's definitely less expensive to have a health screening and catch a disease before it happens or in its early stages rather than waiting until that disease is full-blown and requires massive treatment. The key example that comes to my mind is breast cancer. We have mammograms that can detect breast cancer early. Not always, but generally that is the case. And it makes so much sense to me as a health educator that we would want to have that preventive screening to assess our risk factors, catch the disease early, rather than wait until it's full-blown and then have to go through horrific treatments. And again, it may not be the best example, but it's the first one that comes to mind. This is where, the fair warning, I get off on these tangents, kind of comes into play. I get very passionate about this. So while we have made some incredible progress in improving human health, we still have a long ways to go. Our life expectancies have definitely increased. 100 years ago, I would be long since gone at 54 years old. People just didn't live beyond their 40s. Our childhood mortality has decreased. We've got better prenatal and infant and child care in place. We've had significant decreases due to eradication or elimination of infectious diseases. However, with some of the movement against vaccinations, we are seeing a reemergence of some of these diseases. So the burden of disease is constantly evolving, and you think about the things that are constantly changing. So our economy, our society, the aging of the population, and then of course technical and scientific progress. So we're seeing, for sure, there are still many disparities. We're seeing wealthier countries have much better access to health services, in part, or perhaps mainly due to education. Better education, you'll find, does lead to better health outcomes. Middle to low income countries are still seeing a definite lag behind. However, there are exceptions to that. Countries such as China, Cuba, and Costa Rica, despite their economic status, are keeping up with the wealthier countries with access to health services. So I hope this has been beneficial to you. I'm sorry to have rambled on and on, but again, it's a useful tool if you have a different learning style. Use it as you wish. Everyone have a great week. Thank you so much for listening.